If you're going to be using the equalizer hitch, I'm going to show you how to use that. The first thing you want to do is when you come, I'll attach on the ball portion onto the back of your vehicle. Then I'm going to measure and adjust that according to the height of the trailer. Sometimes we have to do that more than once. It depends on the suspension of the towing vehicle. I've already adjusted this one and I've already backed it up so that the ball is right underneath the tongue. So the first thing I can do then is lower down onto the tongue or onto the ball. Normally at this point, in order to make sure that we have the right height, I'll go ahead and lower it down enough so that all the weight is onto the back of the vehicle. Then I'll measure the front and back ends of the trailer to make sure that we're running level. I've already measured that, so we don't have to do that at this point. So what I've done now is I've gone down onto the ball. I'm going to close my little ball lock, push that forward, teeth go down into the hole. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and put on my extra security latch there. With that attached onto the ball, I'm going to crank up the back end of the trailer. Now, the reason why I'm cranking up the back end of the trailer is because I'm going to relieve the pressure on the rear axle. Now, what an equalizer hitch does is two different things for you. One, it helps to distribute the weight more evenly between your rear axle and your front axle. With a bumper tow trailer, when we put all the weight down of the tongue, it's going to put most of that weight on the rear axle. With an equalizer hitch, or also known as a stabilizer hitch, then, or a weight distribution hitch, they have kind of several names. Equalizer is actually the brand name. With that, we're going to lift up the back of the vehicle, and it's going to help to distribute that weight more evenly between your rear axle and your front axle. To make sure that we keep that, we're actually going to put on these bars. Now, here's one little socket for the bar, and I'm going to do the other side here right now. There's one of these bars, big heavy monsters. Take the pin out, take this other pin out. The groove goes up and down, slide that into the hole. I always put the bigger pin on the inside. The reason being is those bars can swing and pinch your fingers, so that's why I'm going to do that there so my fingers don't have to spend as much time in between there, and then I'll put on that cotter pin. And then I'm going to go ahead, let me do it on this side so you can see it better. Take this pin out. Groove goes up and down, slides in, and cotter pin. Now these bars are going to swing over and go onto this shelf. I'm going to go ahead and pull this cotter pin out and my 7 pin up. Because I've lifted up the back of the towing vehicle, it's going to make it a lot easier to get these bars on. See how easy that was? That is only because I've lifted up the back of the vehicle. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the 7 pin in so it goes up and over the bar and then lock it in. Now there's another option. If you don't lift up the back of the vehicle, or you're on some sort of an angle to make it harder, even after you lift up the back of the vehicle, these bars are still hard to get on, then I have what's called a cheater bar. This is the cheater bar. What you'll do with this is the bar goes into that socket. This little hook goes into the hole there. Something like that. Lift that up and pop it on. Usually it's not that easy and you have to give it a good extra kick on that. Take that out. 7 pin in. Load the cotter pin. Something like that. Let me do the same thing to the other side. Okay, with those bars on, I'm going to go ahead and lower this down. Now that those bars are on though, that's going to help to distribute the weight more evenly between your rear axle and front axle, giving more contact with all 4 tires, hence making it a weight distribution hitch. And it's also a great safety hitch. Now the other thing that an equalizer hitch does is it's an anti-sway hitch. And how that anti-sway hitch works is with friction. You will hear these big bars rubbing on these shelves. As you make tighter turns, you will hear them grind and pop. If you ever get worried about hearing that sound of metal on metal, come out, double check, make sure everything's okay, but don't worry too much about it because you will hear that metal grinding on metal there. And then once that's all hooked up there, we're going to go ahead and raise the tongue jack all the way up, and then we'll hook everything up just like we did the other one. You've got your breakaway cable, which will be hooked up separate. You've got your electrical cord, little knob there, catch on the lid, goes straight up. Push it all the way in so it catches onto the lid. Beautiful. And then you've got your breakaway chain. You want to try to get them to cross if at all possible, making sure there's still enough room for everything to swing freely. Then you'll move your block and you're ready to go. To remove the equalizer hitch and to unhook it is a little bit different than a regular hitch because you have to release the tension off those bars. So when you go to remove it, you'll basically do just the opposite. Take off these pins, lift up on the lid, pull with the plug, never with the cord. Take off this chain, out of the way, take off the breakaway cable. Now, this breakaway cable, if you're not going to watch the other video, I should probably go over that as well. The purpose behind this breakaway cable is if you were to become disconnected from the towing vehicle, this little cable is going to pull this pin right out of this box and engage the trailer's brakes. Now, if you ever feel the trailer's brakes engaged when they shouldn't be engaged, come out, double check, make sure that this cable didn't get snagged on anything because you can easily burn up the axles if you try to drive while those electronic trailer brakes are on. The reason why we cross these chain cables is it kind of creates a little cradle for the tongue to lay on. If you were to become disconnected from the towing vehicle, it creates that cradle so you're not digging the tongue down into the asphalt. And then this electrical cord, just remember, always pull with the cord, always pull with the plug, not the cord, or else this kind of stuff happens. All right, now to take those bars off, you have to crank it all the way back up. We're going to leave it attached to the ball. See, we've still got the lock on the ball because what we're doing is we're actually going to be lifting up the back of the truck. And the reason why we want to lift up the back of the truck so we can relieve that pressure so we can get those bars off a little bit easier. So we'll crank it up just a little bit here because the angle we're on, it's not that bad. Go ahead and pull that off. Pull that bar off. Put those back on so we don't lose them. Same thing other side. Cotter pin, 7-pin, take bar out. Put the 7-pin and the cotter pin back in. Then I usually remove these bars. You don't have to remove these bars, but it sure makes it a lot easier to deal with this hitch without these bars. These bars can be dangerous. They can swing around and they can pinch fingers, pinch hands, and they certainly hurt to run into with your shins. So usually just set them off to the side or stack them up here on top of the battery. I always put the pins back in those bars so I don't lose them. Okay, now the bars are all unhooked. Now I'm going to go ahead and lower this down because we have to release the pressure off of the ball. Just enough so it releases the pressure off. Take that little lock out. Put it up where we don't lose it. Ball lock, press down, pull it back, and then crank it back up. Of course, before you ever unhook the trailer, make sure the trailer is level side to side and the wheels are chalked. Now, sometimes, and it's not doing it this time, but I wanted to tell you about it anyway, sometimes if there's any kind of pressure, if you're on any kind of an angle, sometimes this ball will want to stay attached. Sometimes the tongue will want to stay attached to the ball. So as you're bringing it up, it doesn't want to come out. What you can do is go ahead and give a little bit of pressure on the bottom of or at the back of the truck, and that'll help that ball pop out. When you do that, though, be aware that the trailer might make a little lurch either forward or back depending on the way it is. So make sure that those tires are chalked. And the more level you have the ground where you're putting the trailer, the safer it's going to be. Just cranking that up. All right, as soon as you can clear that ball, then you can go ahead and pull forward and you're completely unhooked.